Hi, my name is Kate Sullivan, and I'm representing the Medical Advisory Board of the Immune Deficiency Foundation. I'm here today on April 10th, 2020, to give an update on the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to cover several topics in this overview, and at the end, I'm going to talk about some recent data from a registry that is specifically dedicated to understanding how immune deficient patients specifically do when they have COVID-19. I'm going to start with an overview of the infection itself. There has been a lot of information thanks to colleagues in China and Italy where they have had more experience with COVID-19 than we have in the United States. And I'm going to describe the course of a typical infection so you have a better sense of what it entails. So typically, once COVID-19 enters the body, and remember it can do so through respiratory droplets that are inhaled, but also by touching something and then touching your eyes. So you want to be particularly careful if you have itchy eyes or you wear contact lenses where habitually you touch your eyes more often. So touching your nose, touching your eyes is a very important way of transmission. So once the virus enters the body, there is typically about a 5 to 6 day incubation period. And that term refers to people not yet having symptoms, but carrying the virus in their body. Once the person becomes symptomatic, and while the average is 5 to 6 days, the range is 2 to 3 days out to about 12 days. So it can vary from person to person. But once the person develops symptoms, the most common symptoms at the beginning are fever and cough among those who have symptoms at all. And fever and cough occur in the majority of patients. The evolution at that point is typically divided into 3 categories. Mild infection, where the symptoms are usually limited to fever and cough, sometimes muscle aches. There is a moderate category where in addition to those symptoms, the people may have shortness of breath. And then the severe category that requires hospitalization. And the evolution is quite different in each of those 3 cases. For the mild cases, typically the infection can last anywhere from a week to a month in terms of how people feel and the longevity of their symptoms. For severe cases that are in the hospital, the typical amount of time in the hospital is about 3 weeks. And you might be interested to know that a lot of the manifestations in the severe cases are partly due to the virus itself and partly due to the immune response to the virus. And that has led to some important trials of immune modulating therapies or immune suppression therapies as a treatment in the severe cases specifically. Now it's important to remember that mostly what we know is about the severe cases. About 80% of cases in countries where they've done good surveillance and they're picking up people who are not presenting at a hospital, it appears as though 80% of the cases are mild, about 10% are moderate, and about 10% are severe. I want to transition and turn to some therapeutics. Boy, has that been a hot topic on the news, and so I'll just review just some basic facts about the treatments that are being tested. So in one of my previous videos, I talked about an antiviral regimen called lopinavir/ritonavir, and that has recently been tested in the classic way that drugs are tested, meaning a double-blind placebo-controlled trial. This means it's a fairly large group of patients, and neither the doctors nor the patients know whether they've gotten the active drug or a placebo. In that large study that was done in China, there was no benefit to that antiviral cocktail. Moving on to hydroxychloroquine, which is by far the most controversial of all the treatments that have been proposed. There are 2 studies that have been published, one from China that demonstrated that cough and fever were shortened by about a day in the treated patients. And then another study from France that showed that the viral shedding declined faster in the group that had hydroxychloroquine. So why is it controversial? Why, if there are two studies out there that seem to show benefit, why would it be controversial? Well, for one thing, it is not a drug that is without side effects, so it does cause cardiac arrhythmias, and so you don't necessarily want people to be getting it willy-nilly without having monitoring. Also, the studies that were done were quite small, so they don't have the same level of value as the first study that I cited, where it was a double-blind placebo-controlled study. So when you hear the scientists say we really need more data, that's because that's the way that drug trials are done, and that's the way we get the best data. When you hear other people saying, oh, we should just give it to everyone, first of all, we don't have enough to give it to everyone. But secondly, there are consequences that might not be so obvious, and so I understand the enthusiasm behind testing it and trying it, but there are some real reservations about using it in every case. I want to talk about remdesivir. This is an antiviral that is currently undergoing one of the largest drug trials ever in China. Those data have not been released yet, but there is a lot of hope that this drug will provide real benefit for patients. And then lastly, a topic that should be near and dear to the hearts of everyone at the Immune Deficiency Foundation, and that is the use of convalescent serum. So what does this mean? This means purified antibodies from people that have recovered from COVID-19. So when you respond to the virus, you make antibodies, and those antibodies can be collected from people that recovered and given to people that are acutely sick. So this was tested in China, and it was found to be of benefit. And now there is a network that is originated by the Red Cross to try and identify and take serum from people in the United States that have recovered from COVID-19. So I want to end by talking a little bit about immune deficiency specifically. So first of all, we're all waiting for these drug trials. We're waiting for a vaccine. What can we do in the meantime? So in my first video, I said don't use masks. They're not very effective. And it's true that surgical masks have a lot of air gap, so things get in through the sides, but I suppose they do provide some benefit. Slightly better are the masks that are circles, because those make a seal against your face. And you'll see that I have a simple cloth mask next to me, which is what I wear when I walk home. They all do provide some benefit to immune deficient patients, but I actually think the larger benefit is the public health benefit. So masks are always better at preventing stuff from coming out than preventing stuff at coming in. And so if you can mask everyone, you're at least preventing people who carry the virus from spreading it around. So I have come around to endorsing masks now. The other news that I want to share with you is from an international survey that is collecting information on immune deficient patients with COVID-19. That international survey is spearheaded by the International Union of Immunologic Societies. The Immune Deficiency Foundation has been an important supporter of that, and there are a number of immune societies on different continents that have also become energized and are supporting this. So the data that I have to share with you is still quite preliminary. There have been 15 patients reported to the registry who have an immune deficiency and have a confirmed infection with COVID-19. Among those 15 cases, there are 3 that are people with phagocyte defects, 2 people with T-cell defects, 6 people with antibody defects, 3 people with inflammatory conditions, and 1 person whose diagnosis was not reported. Among the 6 people with common variable or antibody deficiencies, 1 of 6 had severe disease. You will understand that that's roughly the same as the general population. Another important finding from this survey is that the immune deficient patients had largely the same symptoms as the general population. They did not seem to be markedly different in terms of the way they manifested disease. So let me come back to the idea of this severe disease being due to the immune response to the virus, not a direct effect of the virus. There are a number of trials in the United States and in Europe using targeted immune suppression to try and quell that immune response so that it doesn't cause harm. There's not much data out there, but it does seem to have a benefit in the most severe cases where there's a lot of immune response in the lungs, and that immune response is causing harm. I think this should hearten immune deficient patients because it means that just having a weaker immune system isn't automatically an equation that they will have more severe disease. I think we still need to learn more, and I would urge you that if you have had COVID-19, to please ensure that your case gets reported to the registry or to the Immune Deficiency Foundation so that they can take care of putting the data into the registry. I want to end by saying thank you for all that you're doing to protect each other, to protect other people, and to adhere to the public health guidelines. A lot of the television news stories end with, we'll all get through this together. I do find it heartening that there are people doing so much good around this, whether it's delivering food or staying indoors or making sure that other people have masks by making them. I do find that there is a lot of good that has been revealed through this otherwise completely tragic pandemic. Take care and stay well.